Hello and welcome to the Card Combo Show with me, Choco Billy. Alright, so the first card I want to talk about is the first ever card in the game. You say the first ever card in the game is numerically the first card in the game, Auron 1-001H. So, even when he first came out, he wasn't a fantastic card. When Auron deals damage to your opponent, you may play one fire backup from your hand onto the field, dull. So the first and foremost thing is that he has to get through, he has to not die, and then when he hits your opponent, you have to have the backup in hand, which can be a bit of a pain. But provided, his power is pretty decent, so provided he isn't getting blocked by something, there are chances that he's going to deal the damage. But that's where Ninja comes in. Ninja's decent because even if you've got a few backups down, you break Ninja, he then creates the space for the backup that Auron will place onto the field. So provided your opponent doesn't have a kill mechanism like Diablo or some such, which always seems to be the way these days, and with the power creep these days, it's a lot easier to kill things. The first thing that comes to mind is Luch. But yeah, so provided he gets an attack, or he attacks and survives, you want to go for probably the most value. So the highest costed fire backup you have is Vermilion Bird Lasikai Tuna. So she searches a summon, plays it, increases the damage it deals by 1,000 as well. That's pretty decent. It means that you'll end up having to run a couple of 6 costs in your deck, which more often than not isn't actually that big of a deal these days. But depending on the momentum behind your deck, you may not want to have too many high costed cards in there, and a lot of the better fire cards are higher costed and have quite fairly big restrictions. But you could also run something like Muti, which is kind of like a smaller Kaituna in a way. He finds you that summon, doesn't play it, but you can run Muti alongside Kaituna. So you could have like a kind of Bahamut themed deck with Muti and Kaituna, and he also reactivates if you cast Bahamut as well, so that's not too bad. Another one is Meath. Meath's a bit of a weird one, but the reason I don't like playing Meath is because you're effectively paying 4 to search yourself a summon, which isn't bad by any stretch of the imagination. But it's the fact that you have to discard the correct card to find the forward you want to find. So you have to have that in hand or ready to go, which is a bit of a pain. But being able to reduce his cost, make him free onto the field, and then discarding the cards you want to find yourself forward, that's also fairly reasonable as well. Alright, keep this fire trainer rolling. The next card is Phoenix 5-019L. So choose one forward or cost 3 or less in your break zone, and up to 1 forward the opponent controls. Play the form into the field dull and deal the latter 8,000 damage. One of the best fire cards, probably in the top 5 for best summons in the game. It's good because it's not color restricted, so you can just have some random off-color forward just to throw into the field. You could be mono fire, but no, I'm going to throw some ice in that. No, I'm going to throw some wind in that. There's a huge variety of good it's the longer the game goes on, the better the forward selection becomes, right? But Dash is one of the first ones that springs to mind. Now, it only really works if you're on damage 5, because you cast Phoenix, you take out a forward, hopefully, anyway, and then if you're on 5 damage, Dash comes onto the field, you immediately put him into break zone. You've probably taken out 2 forwards. That in itself is pretty decent. Even if you're in a bind, just if you're Phoenixing something, it doesn't die, but then putting Dash into break zone to break something, that's really good, because if it gets you out of the situation and ends up turning the game round for you, then it's worth it. Now, another good card that came out this set is the Warrior of Light 11-044H. So when Warrior Light enters the field during this turn, the next damage dealt to you becomes 0 instead. So this might be a decent card in mono fire to have just one of, because there's so many fire cards now that deal you a point of damage. Now, a lot of fire cards also become stronger with the points of damage you've been dealt, but ultimately it is your way to losing the game. So if you can mitigate these sorts of things, then why not? If you can play Warrior Light into the field followed by Dadaluma, then he won't deal you point damage, and you've got 2 decent forwards and you've only paid 5. But yeah, Phoenix, say your opponent's got 2 forwards, they attack with 1, you cast Phoenix, hopefully you blow up the other forward that didn't attack, you bring Warrior Light onto the field, next point damage you take, doesn't happen, and so you just let the attack through. I like that. Another little one is Vincent, so you get 2 pops of 8k, which isn't too bad. I mean, you can definitely finish something off, or you can take out 2 things. Now, you do have to sacrifice a backup, which, depending on the deck type you're running, it's not the end of the world. Sometimes it's nice just to make room for another backup to be played. It doesn't have to, the backup being broken doesn't have to have any sort of resoluting effect, but it's still good to be able to deal 16k to one thing, or just two packets of 8k. And now this is where it gets a bit more kind of off-piste. Zargabath. So when Zargabath enters the field, you may play a forward of any element except ice of cost 3 or less from your hand onto the field. So it's similar in Phoenix, that it brings a 3 cost onto the field, and it's not restricted so long as it's outside of ice, so it could play either of the forwards I just mentioned. But obviously I'll put it more likely to be fire, given that fire ice is a decent enough combo. But yeah, bringing Zargabath onto the field, that in itself isn't fantastic, but him then being able to bring in a forward which would, you know, be standing up, that's good, because you've taken something out and now you've got a blocker as well. Similar to this, you've also got Shelk. So when Shelk comes to the field, you may play a forward of any element except ice of cost 2 or less from your hand onto the field. If you do so, your opponent discards 1 card from his own hand. Now that's a nice, or a bit of an awkward kind of combo. You Phoenix, you've dealt 8k to something, you bring Shelk in, she won't be standing up, but she brings in something from your hand, so maybe Frit, that's a decent enough combo. He can then block if you want him to. Get yourself a Ifrit from your deck, if he blocks or dies. But you also make your opponent discard a card, which might not be something they'd considered. So again, Shelk might not be the worst kind of card to have. It's just like a one-off, just randomly thrown in, and then just toss it into the break zone, hope your opponent doesn't notice, and then you cast Phoenix, and they'll be like, oh, what are you grabbing a VV? It's like, nah, Shelk. And then bring in Shelk, bring in Frit. All of a sudden, you've just made your opponent discard a card in a quote-unquote mono-fire deck. Alright, so another card I really like, and I can't get enough of this card every time a new set comes out. I tried to run him to get him to work. Is Edward 3-029R. So 1 ice and 1 colourless dull. Your opponent discards 1 card from his or her hand. You can only use this ability during your turn. And then he's got an S where Edward cannot be chosen by your opponent's summons or abilities this turn. Now, he isn't fantastic, but if you run him alongside something like Harley, I think her name is, he becomes a 1 cost, which isn't so bad. So if you play Harley turn 1, Edward turn 2, that's reasonable. But the first card that comes to mind is No-No. So you've got Edward down, you've got No-No down, you make your opponent discard by paying for his ability, you attack with something, stand Edward back up, pay from hand maybe, make your opponent discard another one. Being able to make your opponent discard at any point through a activated ability, I think's quite offensive, and you know, you have to be in a position for this to actually be able to happen, but provided you can get it to happen, it's quite offensive. Now, a card this works well alongside is something like Varn. So, when Varn enters the field, you may play 1 wind forward of cost 3 or less from your hand onto the field. More of that later. But when Varn attacks, choose up to 2 backups you control, activate them. So that alongside No-No, you're reactivating 3 backups. You've got Edward, No-No, and 1 other backup down, say Harley. You can now reactivate the 3 of them, so you go to attack, you dull Edward and No-No and Harley, choose Edward's ability, make your opponent discard, on the stack you've attacked, you reactivate them all, do it again. You've managed to make your opponent discard 2 from attacking. Now you have paid effectively 6, but, you know, you made your opponent discard 2. Now, if Varn brings in something along the lines of, say, Ritz, I don't care about any of Ritz's text except for when Ritz attacks, choose up to 3 backups you control, activate them. You attack with Ritz, with No-No on the field. You choose No-No, Edward, and Harley on the stack. You then choose Edward with No-No's ability on the stack of that. Use Edward's ability, make your opponent discard. You reactivate everything, or you'd have to do it No-No first, then Ritz. So No-No to reactivate Edward, Ritz to then reactivate the 3 of them, and then you stack all 3, or you pay the 3 to play Edward's ability, discard, reactivate them all, dull again for Edward's ability, make your opponent discard, then finally reactivate Edward, pay from hand to make your opponent discard once more. So you've paid 1 card from hand and 1 attack of Ritz to make your opponent discard 3. If you can do that even 1 turn, that can just be a killer. That can be a game changer. And I just think that's a funny ability to be able to do. Alright, so Yasmat. A a weird card for Wind. He's fantastic, but he doesn't get too much play because of the fact that he just costs so much. But, you know, it's Wind. He effectively only costs 5 if you do play for... 4, sorry. But yeah, Yasmat, the only real thing I care about here is activate all the characters you control. Fland it! So, I tried... It didn't really work, to be honest, but I tried running a Earth, Wind tax deck. So, at the beginning of your turn, activate all the characters you control. On the sack, use Fland it to choose so your opponent has to pay 1 or their forward cannot block this turn. Now, your opponent has to pay then upon you using that ability, because if they don't, then that forward from that point on cannot pay. It's not the case of pay 1 at any point before I attack or after I've attacked and then you can choose to block then. They have to pay once you use Fland its ability. So the problem with a lot of tax is the fact that if you pay for it, your opponent will pay it, and then you're like, oh, well, you can't. It's like a kind of a worse version of discard in a way. But the fact that if your opponent cannot pay it, it's then that they are screwed. Because if you've got a couple of Flanders on the field, okay, pay 2, your forward can't block. Alright, then they reactivate, do it again. You've made your opponent have to pay 4 on your turn. The chances are they haven't all their backups open, or if they have, they've had to do it in preparation for the Flandit, or they're going to have to pay out of hand. That can be quite offensive, and I think it's a fun little change-up. Yuri, he was like the first card that everyone thought about when Yasmat was first revealed. It's just, yeah, if you've got 5 backups and a Yuri down, yeah, I'll Dawn freeze 2 things, or I'll draw 2 cards, or yeah, you use any of his abilities in any order you want, but it's just a decent card. I think being able to draw 2 cards on top of the 2 you get that turn, that's probably one of the stronger abilities, but, you know, if you can get game from Darling freezing 2 things, then just go for that. Princess Sarah, so another new card this set. So the chance are you probably be running her in a mono deck, so mono Wind, but all your forwards gain plus 1,000 power. I mean, Yasmat's already huge anyway, so he doesn't really need the power buff. But to be able to potentially in one turn give your forwards, all your forwards, a +2 power buff, that's pretty decent. Arc. So again, mono Wind probably, but I quite like the idea of being able to say, okay, choose 1 forward, it can be blocked. It's similar to Yuri in the fact that you can dull your forwards to be able to do this. So yeah, dull a total of 3 active Wind forwards or Wind backups. So it's not restricted just to your backups. So if you've got Arc and another couple of forwards out, I mean that's unlikely, with 5 backups, then yeah. But still, it's a nice little combo to be able to make your forwards not be able to block, or make your forwards so they can't be blocked, and then they reactivate and go swinging. Heretical Knight Garland, so this could also work in that little tax deck. Your yeah, you pay the 6, and now this, unfortunately, you would have to pay out of hand, because you can't generate 6 from your backups unless you've got that backup that can break to create a CP. I can't remember what her name is now. But yeah, chances are you're going to be discarding out of hand, but if you can do that, so you pay for his ability, you reactivate everything, you pay for it again, and he gets to attack, then you've just dealt 12k to their board. Not bad. And then lastly, Gastalian Empire Sid. So it's almost like the deck would have to be based around it, and in Ice and Wind don't have the best kind of monster mix-up, because most of Wind's monsters are things that either reactivate everything or break things of cost 5 or more. It's a bit strange. Ice has got some decent monsters though to be able to dull and freeze stuff, so if you're managing to dull and freeze your opponent's forwards whilst you'll be able to reactivate everything, it's never that bad. But being able to give 2 monster counters in 1 turn to a monster, worse things have happened. And then Fiona, just, yeah, pay for dull Fiona, search any character, and just get it, and then you activate your backups to then be able to, it's basically, you might as well just say Yasmat, where it says activate all the characters you control, just go search any character you want. If you can get that off even once, that's really good value. Une! So, I like this card, but it's always been a bit sad for me that this effect will only trigger during your turn and only once per turn. Now obviously it would be stupid, it'd be super powerful if it could happen in your opponent's turn, and if it could happen more than once per turn, but you know, it limits the combos that you can throw into it. But Varn, if you can play Varn and cast a summon, I mean, say you've got 5 backups down. I keep saying, say you've got 5 backups down. How often do you actually consistently get 5 backups down? But to play Varn, if you are on 5 points of damage, you get 2 onto the field. Cast a little 1-cost summon, I don't know, Shivan or something. And then bounce Varn again to get another 2 forwards onto the field. Now, obviously, it doesn't have to be a deck kind of based around this, and like I said earlier with Orin, you'd need to have a fair few, well, you've got Varn and Une. If you want the deck to be based around that, the chances are you won't have too many Une, but you'll have some Varns. And you don't want to have too many high cost cards, what I'm trying to say. And with a Varn deck, you want a lot of 3 costs or less, and there are some decent ones in Ice, but generally people tend to go for Mono Wind with Varn, or there's a lot of good Lightning ones, or actually, you know what, retract that one I said from earlier. There's plenty of good Ice cards that you can get. Even just the discard choices alone, there's plenty of good options. Layla, yeah, just play Layla, get a Viking onto the field, cast a summon, play Layla, get onto the field, hopefully get another Viking, draw plenty of cards. Again, you can just do it with Viking. Oh, that quality's not as good as I was hoping for. Oh. But yeah, Viking, he enters the field, you draw a card, you cast a summon, he is removed from the game, he's left the field, gets you another card, comes back onto the field, gets you another card. So if you can do that in one turn, then yeah, you've paid 3 backups to get Viking down, that's drawn you a card, then use 1 more backup to cast a summon. That then gets you 2 more cards. That's really good value. Aerith, yes, this is another new card that I think this will work well with because, excuse me, yeah, Ice has got a lot of good 7 cards, especially now with the Remnant engine in it, but you play Aerith onto the field, you get yourself 2 7 characters from the break zone, cast a summon, bounce Aerith, get yourself 2 more 7 characters from the break zone. Yeesh, that's mean. Umaro, yes, I love this card. This card was amazing in pre-release for me. I think it's a fantastic card anyway. But yeah, just to be able to take 2 of your opponents forwards and put them at the bottom of the deck. Nice. And Kayn is a bit of a weird one. It's just because of the minus 8,000. To be able to get that off is quite a big deal because not many things can mitigate against power loss. And he works against Felthanos, or a lot of options or things that would otherwise cause issues. And even if you can get Kayn's reduced costs to bring him onto the field and then flicker him minus 16k on something, it's highly unlikely something isn't going to be surviving because it's the forward he's chosen isn't breaking, it's being put into the break zone through a rule process. So even if they tightened it to make sure it can't be broken this turn, it's still going away. Arc, yes, so I had a deck called a Super Arc Value Engine. Now obviously one of the big draws from Arc is the draw. So really you want to be running them alongside things that can draw you cards. And as it's all the forwards lose 8,000 power to the end of the turn, that obviously includes your own as well, so Porum, you play Arc, Porum dies, grab your Arc. Rinse and repeat, really. Obviously you don't want to keep doing that because Arc is, if you can't cast them, a dead card in your hand, then that can be a bit of a pain. Aiko? Now that's not too bad because if you are running some sort of weird summoner deck, then you could have her only cost 4 from Braska. She searches your summon so she can search your Arc, and when she's put from the field into the break zone, draw you a card. So using Arc and her on the field, that has then drawn you 2 cards. Arc is starting to recur his value. Viking, again, the crappy quality Viking even. He leaves the field. You get 2 cards from casting Arc on him. New Garnet. So I did run this alongside the old Legend Garnet as well, where all your forwards gain 1,000 power whenever you cast a summon. But this one works as well because you cast Arc, she gains a counter, put the counter on her or something else. If you've got Walker down, then she'll survive anyway. But you could throw the counter onto another forward that might not survive. That works quite nicely. Yeah, so Iedolas. He is a not very heavily played card, but I really liked him. At the Nationals of 2019, he was a key function in my deck because being able to replay summons at a moment's notice was important for me. So dull, put Iedolas into the break zone, choose one summon of cost 4 or less in your break zone, cast it without paying the cost. Remove that summon from the game after use instead of putting it into the break zone. So the summon is gone once you use it, but hopefully it's doing a lot of work. So Fanfrit's the first thing that kind of pops to mind. Obviously you don't want to use too much if you've got too many forwards down, but if you've got no forwards, cast Fanfrit. If you've got Una down to reduce its cost as well, that's great. So pay 2, Fanfrit, get rid of your opponent's forward. Iedolas, remove Fanfrit from the game, get rid of another opponent's forward. Obviously they choose their forward, so if they've got quite a few, it can be still a pain, but you know, getting rid of forwards at the end of the day is not the end of the world. Lich. I didn't run this in the deck I ran at the Nationals, but it's still funny. You cast Lich, and if you run it with the new Terra, where you dull, pay 1 ice and put it in the break zone, you can cast Lich from your hand. Half your opponent's powers, or opponent's forwards' powers, round up, which is decent. And then Iedolas to do it again. It should be a board wipe, but you know, there are things, unfortunately, there in the way, like Minwoo and some such, but it's a funny little combination. Now Leviathan, now this is a card that actually came in very handy with Iedolas, because choose one action ability, cancel this effect. So many people underestimate the usefulness of that effect. Even the green mage backup being able to cancel any of your opponent's action abilities because they forget about it. If you've got Leviathan, like you discarded turn 1 or turn 2 to play some backups, and your opponent's forgotten about it, and most of the time your opponents tend to not look at that effect anyway, they look at the they think of it as bouncing. Just being able to have those 3 effects at a moment's notice is so decent. Being able to choose an action ability, cancel this effect, or choose during this turn your forwards you control don't receive any damage from summons. That is good as well, because so many, like if you're up against mono fire or lightning, like with Ramu, that sort of thing, it's like, nah mate, you're not going to be able to do anything. And then Mist Dragon, so another good card, another reason Iedolas is good, similar to Phoenix, is that you're not restricted by colour. So you could just have some Mist Dragons just laying in wait in your break zone ready to be played, cancel your opponent's summons, or just remove their break zone. Again, it's a card they can forget about, that's there, and then all of a sudden you crack Iedolas and just do something, and it's such a pain. Like, I think I speak for everyone here when you just forget about Mist Dragon, you play, like you just pay into this summon or this effect, and then Mist Dragon comes out and you're like, oh, why did I forget about Mist Dragon? So yeah, having Mist Dragon or Leviathan available at a moment's notice is just fantastic. Alright, thank you all for watching, and enjoy the Final Fantasy VII Remake, guys. I got mine a couple of days early and I've been playing that, so hence the kind of shorter episode here. I haven't had as much time to think about the cards I'm doing, and as much time put into the video, unfortunately, but yeah, enjoy the remake, guys. It's fantastic. I've really been enjoying it. Post in the comments below what you think of the remake, and also follow me on Twitter as well. It's at ChocoBilly92. Let me know what you thought of the video, any feedback, any suggestions, any silly card combos. Let me know, and I'll see you in the next video.